Alrighty, so today we are going to talk about Inter Miami, and we're going to talk about specifically what has gone wrong with this team. Because I think after that 3-0 loss that they suffer against Orlando City at home, I think it's safe to say that Messi and friends and this team has completely hit rock bottom. I mean, this is a team that was supposed to not only compete for the Supporters Shield once again, but a team that was supposed to be an MLS Cup favorite heading into this year, and a team that even are potentially a favorite in terms of other continental competition, especially in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. I mean, when you look at the run that they had in the CONCACAF Champions Cup all the way to the semifinal, you got to say they had probably the easiest run out of any MLS team to make it to that stage, and especially with them not have to play against a Mexican team, and even when they do have to face against some really good MLS as well, you kind of had a sense that they should have a relatively good run all the way to the final, right? Well, no, they lost to Vancouver in that semifinal, and really that loss that they suffered really started to kind of ripple into the league form as well. Because as we have seen in these last 7 games, I mean, this is easily the worst run of form that Inter Miami has had with Messi and his friends in ever since they joined the club back in 2023, and that's kind of started to become why Inter Miami has becoming the most talked about team, not just in MLS but also in world football as well, and coincidentally also now become the most hated team in MLS as well. And I know obviously a lot of people are enjoying the downfall that this Inter Miami team has had, but again, with all the expectation that this team have set themselves in, how in the world have they gone through a stretch like this where in the last 7 games they have lost five of them, and that one of the big reasons why they are on a really bad run of form is simply they cannot keep the ball out of the net, and we'll get to that in just a bit. But in terms of this season so far, remember this team at one point had the longest unbeaten run out of any team. In fact, they were the last team to have their unbeaten record broken this season, and they were sitting near the top of the standings. Obviously, they did lead the standing for a bit, but they were sitting like around second and third place. And knowing that they also had that game in hand, when they do win that game in hand, they would have took over the first spot in the Eastern Conference. But that doesn't seem like it's the case right now. Even with that game in hand, they are still very far off in the Eastern Conference. So far off that they're currently sixth in the Eastern Conference. They have a 6-4-3 record. Only have 22 points. They scored 24 goals this season, but they have allowed 21 goals so far this season. That is alarmingly high in terms of goal differential, or the goal allowed that is. But the goal differential is actually at +3 instead of -3. But as I said, most importantly, they because of this bad run of form, they have dropped all the way down to sixth in the Eastern Conference and got eliminated by the Vancouver Whitecaps in the semifinal in a competition that, like I said, they were favorites to win it, or at least one of the favorites to win that cup competition. And not to mention they had probably the easiest path to the final out of any MLS team that have participated in that CONCACAF Champions Cup competition this year. Now, the key note doing this bad run of form, like I said, they have lost five of their last 7 games in all competition. They conceded 20 goals throughout this stretch. I mean, they are leaking goals left and right. And despite the fact that when you look at the talent of this team, it is still there. And goal scoring, actually, when you look at doing this run, their goal scoring has been a little bit better compared to what it was. Where during one stretch of period, they were actually having a lot of trouble in terms of scoring goals, and not scoring goals at least at the rate you would think Inter Miami would be scoring. They were playing like a lot of low scoring affair kind of game, and lately they have definitely picked up in terms of the goal scoring, but it has come a big cost when it comes to the defense that have just really fell apart. And this is not because of the fact that they had some injury crisis in the defensive department. You look at this defense, so the back line, it's almost the same as it was last or at least in the beginning of the season, where they were so well to begin the season. And this is also where we're going to get to talk about Marciano in terms of not only the regression of the defense, but also some questionable moves that he has made when it comes to who is on the pitch there, and especially some of the transfer that they have made. Most of the defensive reinforcement that they have, the likes of Falcon, Luan, and all those players, they have not really helped this defense whatsoever, and it feels like Miami is kind of starting to be in that similar situation where the Galaxy unfortunately found themselves in even to this day, where it doesn't matter whatever defensive player that they sign, nobody can defend, and nobody are able to reach their potential to fix what is a obvious glaring issue with this Inter Miami team, and that, as I said, they just simply can't put the ball out of the back of net, and they suck when it comes to defending transition and also set pieces. Now, when it comes to looking at this stretch, I'm actually going to go back to April 2nd. So it's easy for me to just kind of look at the 7 game stretch where it kind of is at the epic center of this bad run of form that they had. But I'm going to go back to April 2nd because I think this is where it really started. Them losing 1-0 to LAFC in the quarterfinal. That was kind of the beginning where it started to go through a really bad run of form that we see with this team. And yeah, that was a game where they definitely didn't play well against LAFC. LAFC looked really decent and were able to get the 1-0 win. And then the very next game where they play against Toronto FC, against one of the worst team in the Eastern Conference and one of the worst team in the league. Surely they should be easily win this one, even if they didn't really play their strongest team, right? Nope, they drew 1-1 in that game against Toronto and didn't look that good at all in that game with TFC, and probably could have even lost that game because TFC had some really golden opportunity in that one to get a result against Inter Miami. Now, on April 9th in that second leg, they made that miraculous comeback from going down 1-0 relatively early in the game and had to score 3 goals to move on into the next round. Well, they did exactly that. And you just kind of had a sense at that point, well, it seems like things are back to normal. I mean, Inter Miami have shown that great mentality that they have, and it feels like those Barca boys are once again showing the experience that they're not going to panic when they're down in an aggregates, and they'll somehow find a way to come back and get the result, and everything is fine, right? Well, no, because after that they drew 0-0 in the game against the Chicago Fire. Now, granted, Chicago is a much better team compared to previous season, but still, you expect them to get a result, especially in front of 60,000 plus, where pretty much about majority of those fans that attended that game was there to see the GOAT himself and Inter Miami. Now, in the following week, where they also play in an NFL stadium, where they play in Cleveland against Columbus, they did win 1-0 against Columbus. But that game, I think if you actually watch that game, that was the game where, yes, Inter Miami won, but there is definitely a lot bells ringing in terms of how they won that game and the fact that that was a game where Columbus probably should have won that one. I mean, that was just one of those game where Columbus were definitely the better team in that game against Inter Miami. Inter Miami was really struggling throughout the game. They capitalized on their one chances that they had, but they gave up a lot of chances to Columbus, and that was a very uncharacteristic day where Wilfred Nancy's side just unable to find the back of the net. If they would have found the back of the net in that night, that would have been probably an easy win for the Columbus Crew as well. And that was also kind of game that I also mentioned the fact that, yeah, it seems like Miami has this voodoo magic against the other team where they magically made the other team not be able to finish despite giving up golden opportunity. And I would say that kind of happened in the Chicago game as well. Chicago had some good opportunity to win that game against Miami, just aren't able to take advantage of it. So what happened when the other team finally took advantage of their opportunity? Well, that's where they met Vancouver. Vancouver showed that clinical finishing and were on their way with a 2-0 win against Miami. And I even said in coming into that series against Vancouver, Miami should not underestimate Vancouver. In fact, what Vancouver has done is nothing short of a miracle, but also just it just feels like they're an absolute wagon right now. They're rolling on all cylinder, and this is a team that Miami's got to be very careful as well. Especially, I also said that this Whitecaps team, it seems like they're a team of destiny when they can pull off miracles like they've done in the last couple of rounds against Mexican opposition down in Mexico. And lo and behold, they got outplayed in that game 2-0. But you're thinking, well, this is going to be like the LAFC game, isn't it? They'll come back at home against Vancouver and surely will overcome that deficit, right? Well, before that, they did actually rest pretty much all their starter against FC Dallas. And to be fair, when they did rest most of their starter, they played well, at least in the first half against Dallas. And that's also kind of where it gets to a discussion of maybe this Inter Miami team might not have to always play their star player and maybe trust the youth a little bit because there are definitely talent in this youth team for this Inter Miami team and the supporting cast and especially these kind of reserve player definitely have the ability to come into this team and perform. And this is also where I might even mention the fact that they have made some mistakes when it comes to decided to overlook these kind of supporting cast guys like Robert Taylor and Julian Gresso are the two main example of it. I think this is a mistake on Inter Miami part that they're gonna regret for a long time letting go Robert Taylor and Julian Gresso because we know what Gresso did with Inter Miami doing his time there. He definitely produced a lot to this team, and then of course it feels like he just kind of got stuck in the Marciano doghouse, and now we see him do well with Minnesota. And for Robert Taylor, time will still tell of whether or not if he makes an impact for Austin. He hasn't really quite made too much of an impact, but still, he definitely made a lot of impact for this Inter Miami side. And again, I was really surprised the fact that they decided to get rid of Robert Taylor. I wasn't surprised on the Julian Gresso part because I always thought that Gresso looks like he was going to get pushed out. But I did not expect that for Robert Taylor, and that is one that I think it's gonna really be a big regret for them, especially with the supporting cast. But even then, the supporting cast were playing well in that game, and then yeah, the collapse happened in the second half. Something you usually do not see this Inter Miami team does often. They usually are a team that when they have the lead, they're gonna keep that lead for good. But inexplicably, just absolutely self destruct in the second half and lose 4-3 in that one. And then that brings us to the second leg. In a game where again you were expecting Miami to come back against Vancouver. They had a 1-0 lead after eight minutes as well, and then it just feels like it's that Dallas game all over again, just completely self destruction where Vancouver got a goal and then eventually got another one, and next thing you know, it got ugly to a point where it ends up to be a very embarrassing seeing the exit in the Concacaf Champions Cup. Like facing against Vancouver, we knew that it was always going to be a tough task. But I did not expect Miami would just simply getting absolutely dog water by Vancouver throughout the two leg and just getting absolutely outplayed throughout the two legs like that. With all the star plow that they have, it should not be a 5-1 aggregate loss that Miami suffer. But yet, when you look at the performance that they play against Vancouver in both legs, it was just off from the beginning. It just does not look good whatsoever. Does not look like an Inter Miami team that you expect to see every single time. So yeah, as a result, they exit out in the competition in a pretty embarrassing way. Now they did rebound in May 3rd, and this is probably the most impressive victory that they had throughout this bad run of form where they were able to win 4-1 against the Red Bulls. But what's kind of interesting that's kind of buried down the headlines in this game. Messi was not happy even after this game. Messi definitely showed his frustration after this game. And keep in mind, to this day, Messi still have not signed a new contract with Inter Miami. And while they have agree a new contract to Jordi Alba as well, which might be good news for Inter Miami fans, depending on who you ask. But to this day, they still have not signed Messi to a new contract extension, and I also wouldn't be surprised if he decided not to sign a new contract extension, mainly because he's probably getting fed up in terms of how his team is played, especially how his defense has played, kind of letting him down every single game. But not to mention, Messi himself. I mean, I know I'm gonna get ridiculed by saying this, but he just does not look like himself this season. There's the old saying, "Father time is always undefeated," and we're kind of starting to see it with Messi too. That father time maybe started to catch up to him. When you look at some of the games that he played, it all started with the free kick routine. We know he's one of the best free kick taker in the league. I mean, when he introduced himself against Cruz with that free kick goal, that's definitely going to go down as one of the legendary moment, not only for Inter Miami history, but by an MLS team history, or in this league history as well. But when you look at these free kick routine that he has, none of them has really came close whatsoever. He hasn't scored a free kick goal in a very very long time. And then not to mention in terms of his touches, at times it just kind of look off. It doesn't seem like at times he's been able to take on defenders like what we know Messi can do with 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 himself, and also his finishing as well. Yes, still has the ability to finish chances left and right, and at times he may scoring goal look easy, but then there's also times where he gets himself in a good position and aren't able to bury those chances that you usually see Messi does every single time. Father time is might start to be catching up to him on, and that also might be the same case for this band of former Barca player. I mean, just look at Luis Suarez. I mean, if you want to talk about an example of father time really catch up to a player, it feels like Luis Suarez has completely been caught up to father time, and that you can see how he has not been producing, and he has missed some minutes as well, both personally and injury concern. But at the same time, he just does not look like the goal hungry Luis Suarez compared to what we saw last season as well, and even and guys like Guardiola and even Sergio Busquets. I think Sergio Busquets is probably the big example of it. He just looks slow. Like he's a guy that has looked slow and just at times kind of being a liability to this team because he doesn't really offer too much defensive reinforcement that this team needed him because he's slow and when teams trying to transition him, it's pretty easy to to bypass him because he just looked slow and just doesn't really have it in his game. And it's no wonder why we see a lot of teams that play this transitional game against Inter Miami, and it's pretty easy to do so because there's no midfield present, and that with a slow kind of midfield and defense as well, they're leaving gaps wide open at the back and leaving some golden opportunity that unlike how before they have that voodoo magic against other teams that aren't able to put away, now teams are starting to put away the chances, and we're starting to see the true color of this Inter Miami team. And I think a great example of that is the Minnesota game. I was there at this game, and I did say that coming into that game, I was actually fairly confident that Minnesota can beat Miami. The way that Minnesota play against Inter Miami, I feel like it's going to be a nightmare for Miami to handle. Minnesota is the best transitional team, I think in my opinion, in the league, and this is also a team that don't like the ball and are happy to let Inter Miami build up with their slow attack. That is another problem that I think this Inter Miami team has started to have this season. That slow attack and that tick tacky kind of style has just not been effective as we've seen in previous seasons. So when you have a team that is happy to give the other team possession and like to sit deep, that Inter Miami can't break down a low block, and not to mention the teams that like to hit on the transition. It is no surprise the fact that they Miami lost 4-1. And also, did I even mention the fact that Minnesota is one of the best team in set pieces, and Miami is also one of the worst team in defending set pieces. There you go. No surprise the fact that Minnesota ran riot in that game. And then even against the San Jose Earthquakes, I mean, yes, they did get a point out of that game, but you got to say that was a game that they also could have lost too. And I truly believe that if Chicho stay healthy in that one, and if the Quakes didn't miss some glorious opportunity in the second half, and even had a goal that was disallowed because of offside, Miami would have been on the losing end of that game as well. And then the Orlando City game, almost like a carbon copy of what we saw in the game where they just cannot deal with the transition that Orlando City has. Every single time when Orlando City go on the break, there was no defender near whenever Orlando go on the attack. There were just so many gaping holes that is being founded, and yeah, that's kind of provide the big issue of what's going on with this defense and why they've just been leaking goals left and right. Obviously, Ustari hasn't really kind of covered himself in great glory. He has also let in a couple of soft ones, but it also doesn't help the fact that his defense pretty much been non-existent throughout, and just at times kind of even hung him out to dry because of the lack of recovery time that this team has whenever they face a team that try to go play that transitional game against them. Now, looking at the next 6 games that they have, and that includes the FIFA Club World Cup because they actually have 3 more games left before the FIFA Club World Cup. And the next one, yeah, it's not going to be easy. I mean, they get to face against the Philadelphia Union, who Miami actually beat the Union early this season, so Philly wants some revenge in this one, and especially with the way that Philly has been playing really well this season. I believe they're currently at the top of the Eastern Conference right now. They're licking their chops and knowing that they definitely want some revenge against this Inter Miami side, and especially with the way that this team has already conceded a lot of goal, and this Union team is a team that is known to score goals as well and have a lethal attack. This could get ugly again for Inter Miami. And then the next one they get to play against Montreal. That one they probably could get a result, though Montreal is a team that Miami has had their issue before in the past as well, and especially with the way that if you just ignore that 6-1 beating that they had against Toronto, Montreal is definitely playing a little bit better than what the record suggested. And then of course they play against Columbus before the them going to the FIFA Club World Cup. And even though that game was at Chase Stadium, Columbus won revenge after what happened, and that if Columbus can play that same game against Inter Miami like they did back in April in Cleveland, I think Columbus would have won that one because I'm pretty sure a Wilfred Nancy side is not going to be that kind of lackluster going forward on the finishing department compared to what we saw on that fateful day in Cleveland. Then look at the FIFA Club World Cup, and again, this is where I'll get to talk about how they absolutely need to take advantage of the special transfer window that MLS has allowed for these Club World Cup participate team. Because yeah, I just think with the way the hell they're playing right now, they're gonna get absolutely killed in the Club World Cup. And it starts off with them playing against Al Ali, which is a team that, if you remember last year, this is the team that beat the Seattle Sounders, and the team that Miami should not be taking lightly, even if this is the probably the easiest team that they could have a chance to win. Because after that, they play against Porto, which is a really good Portuguese kind of side, one of the big free Portuguese side in their respective league, and they're definitely also licking the chops so they can get something against this Miami team, and then playing against Palmeiras after that. Palmeiras will also be licking their chop, and it's also a very good team in South America and the Brazilian league as well. I mean, you look at these games. I mean, if they are struggling to keep the ball out of the back of the net against MLS opponent, can you imagine what can happen when they do face against European and even South American team as well, or even an African team, an Egyptian team that has a history of doing very well, not only in the respective league but also knocking off MLS opponent? This could get ugly for Inter Miami. This could be free and out for them, and could be one that maybe could spark some changes for this team, which we'll also get to. Now, looking at the top goal scored so far for this team, it's still Leo Messi with 5 goals, followed by Tadio Alande with 4 goals. But yeah, he has kind of started to cool off a little bit after he actually got to a decent start to the season. But yeah, he has at times been the liability to this team as well. Fafa Pico with 3 goals. He's a guy that he's now finding himself in the same situation as Julian Gresso and Robert Taylor has played. Just keep getting buried because of the depth, even though we know that he can be one of the more dangerous attacker for this Javier Mascherano team, especially coming off the bench late in the game. Then you got Iasko Segovia, who besides the early run of form where he actually looked decent, he has not lived up to his potential. Only 3 goals so far this season, and then of course Luis Suarez, only 2 goals to his name. Yes, I know he has missed times, but he does not look like the Luis Suarez that we saw last season. That is goal hungry. Now, surprisingly, he actually leads the assists. Sorry, with 6 assists, followed by Jordi Alba with 5 assists. Then you got Teosco Scovia with 4 assists. Behami Karmaski with 3 assists, and Messi actually is not in the top assist leader. Only 2 assists so far to his names. Now, 3 things that I think can definitely fix this bad run of form that this Miami team has had. I think the thing that I'm pretty sure a lot of Miami fans have already said, even some of the casual that have said this, get rid of Mascherano. I think it's pretty obvious that I know there's a lot of problem with this team, and I will say that I don't think Mascherano is going to get 100% of the blame. I know this might be an unpopular opinion. It might be a crazy thing to say, but I do think that there are definitely a much better issue, and just look at the way that this roster constructed, especially in the post Messi era. I am very concerned with the way that in the post Messi year will they still have the same impact as well? Let alone we know that in the post Messi year, all these fans are gonna leave this Miami team, and Miami will be back to having attendance problem like what we see in the beginning of the year. But what happened after the Messi and friend year? That could be a little scary because all these supporting cast that is there to build in the post Messi year hasn't really kind of lived up to the task, and that's kind of where I really kind of question the roster building of this team. But again, despite that, obviously the blame is going to have to go with Marciano. And this is no surprise that he's not doing well with this team. We knew that heading into this season, this hire was not a great hire. And if they were going to hire a former Barcelona player that was friend of Messi, they should have got Xavi instead of Javier Mascherano. I mean, Xavi has definitely had much more experience, especially coaching for Barcelona as well. I mean, yes, he didn't do well during his time with Barcelona, but at least he got more experience and definitely have a more tactical mindset in terms of how to set up his team compared to what we see with Javier Mascherano that has no experience in terms of the senior level. And even though he did coach the Argentine Olympic team, it was a big failure in terms of how he coached that team as well. And we're starting to see the same thing here. It's almost like uh, even doing this bad run form, it's almost like he's just going for the motion. I mean, the lineups that he made are very questionable. He's sticking with a lot of some of his star players that is clearly underperforming as well, and not even looking at the bench and maybe even bring in some young guys that can provide a spark as well. And then I think the cherry on top besides the lineup problem is the tactics decision. I mean, he has no plan B in terms of how to adjust when teams try to transition them. I mean, you would expect him to think that by now, when teams are gonna just transition against them, they need to think about a plan to try to stop that. But no, the last couple of games, it's been pretty much the same thing. And this is why I've said that not only the fear factor of this Inter Miami team is gone, as I said before, but it just feels like it's very easy to play against Inter Miami team right now. All you need to simply do is sit back, let them have the ball, and when you do get the ball, hit them quickly on the transition because they're gonna give you a ton of space at the back because they don't have the speed to recover, and when they do also play a very high line, which we have seen them done a lot, that just it feels like that is a recipe of disaster. I mean, when you already have a defense and also a midfield that is very slow to recover, playing a high line is like a death sentence because the other team will just easily hit you on the transition and easily create the chances, as what we've seen in these last couple of games. So yeah, just absolutely malpractice in Marciano Party, and just a classic example of it just feels like he's not ready to be a coach in the MLS level. Maybe not even ready in terms of the senior level in general. Take advantage of the special transfer window. So again, we have a special transfer window involving MLS team in the Club World Cup. The Seattle Sounders is going to get that. LAFC potentially will get that, depending on if they can beat Club America in that one-off play off to replace Leon in the club World Cup, but nevertheless, they have to take advantage of it. Whether is them adding more pieces and fixing the defense, I think that has got to be the number one priority. They have to fix this defense. Like there is no way in the world that when you look at how this defense is that when they face against the likes of Ali, Porto, and Palmeiras, they're gonna get absolutely killed in those games. They're gonna give up a ton of goals in that game, and Messi and his friends is not gonna make the difference in terms of it. It's gonna feel like it's going to remind me a little bit of when they went on that tour in Saudi Arabia, where in some of those games they got absolutely killed in those games as well. And I feel like this could be something similar to it, but now in the grander stage in the Club World Cup. And then of course trust the youth and don't be afraid to sit the star. And I think the second part is the big part and the part that I know Marciano ain't gonna do because he's gonna stick with his gun, and it feels maybe unthinkable to maybe drop the likes of Luis Suarez even when he's healthy, or even Sergio Busquets or Jordi Alba. But you just kind of had a sense that with all these superstar player. I mean, obviously Messi is undroppable. I know that is going to be a factor. Let's be honest. I don't think Messi is the big problem of his team. It's the supporting cast in his team that has kind of let him down, and that's kind of the reason why he's showing his frustration with this team recently. But just I feel like if they had the guts to sometimes sit some of these stars that is clearly underperforming, maybe bring in some of your supporting cast and even some youth as well. Like I said, this team has a really good youth system. We've seen it before where they brought in some promising youth talented player that worked out for this Inter Miami team. Don't be afraid to do so, because if that they're gonna just keep rolling the same team that is clearly underperformed. These are kind of the resort that you're gonna get every single game until things doesn't change. So let me know in the comments below. What do you think of this video? I kind of gone a little in depth in terms of talk about what has gone wrong with this Inter Miami team, and let me know in the comments below. Will they recover? I mean, I know the general public would still want to continue to see this downfall that Inter Miami is heading in, but let me know in the comments below what they need to do to turn things around, and will they turn things around? I mean, I still think this team is too good to miss out on the playoffs. I would be shocked if this team miss out on the playoffs, but at the same time, do I think they're still an MLS Cup favorite? Absolutely not. I think at the stage that they is, I don't think this team is getting anywhere close to being a MLS Cup favorite. Oh, I think it would be probably fortunate if they can survive one round with the state that this team has had because as long until they refound that form again and at least hopefully make the decision that at least get this team back on track. Inter Miami is a team that I don't think anyone can fear anymore. I think this is a team that every team is gonna be licking their chop and say, well, it is a time to really stuff to play against this team because we know they're vulnerable. Let's take advantage of it while it lasts. But like I said, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.